Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are watching final round of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament 2025, which is held in Wijk aan Zee, Netherlands. This game was played between Vincent Keymer, who was white, and his opponent Ramesh Babu Praggnanandha. What is interesting about this game is that while playing this game, Praggnanandha had first place with 8.5 points. His countryman Gukesh also had the same number of points, and these two were competing for the first place. Now, what is even more interesting that his countryman Gukesh actually lost his game before him, and he had a chance with simply going for a draw and winning the first place with a half point in advantage for him, but the situation turned out a little bit different, and we will see how this happened. Praggnanandha really had a chance to hold this game until the very end, but something happened in the end which makes this game even more special. So without further ado, we will go straight into the game. So Vincent opened the game with e4, Praggnanandha replies with c6, so we are in Caro-Kann. Interesting decision by Praggnanandha, so he wants a solid opening, trying to go for a draw. We have two knights Caro-Kann, bishop g4, pinning this knight. h3 immediately asks, what will you do with your bishop? Bishop takes, queen takes on f3, and we have e6 on the board, controlling the center even more. Game continued with bishop e2. We have knight to f6, another developing move, pressuring this pawn, and after castle we have d4. Praggnanandha immediately strikes and attacks this knight, and we have knight to b1 here played for Vincent Keymer. Bishop d6. We have c3 on the board, immediately trying to undermine this pawn structure, and we have c5 to protect this pawn. We have c takes, and knight to a3, a developing move here played for Vincent Keymer. Now, if you are wondering what would happen after knight to a3 if bishop a3 is played, then queen to a3, simply white will not ruin his pawn structure. And this is why after knight to a3, game continued with castle for black. We have knight to c4. Now this bishop is attacked. Of course, black can trade it, but for now Pragg decides not to do that. We have a d3 on the board. Knight develops on c6. We have a4, trying to push this pawn as much as you can, but Pragg doesn't allow that, and he wants to prepare a counterattack with a b5, or at least after a5 there will be no longer a possibility of creating any breaks. So we have a g3 on the board for Vincent Keymer. b5. Now Praggnanandha plays a great move actually, and he has a slight advantage here. After knight to a3, Vincent Keymer decided to give up his pawn, and this is actually a perfectly fine move. Whatever the case, you don't want to take this. Pawn here. So after b5, if you decide to go a takes on b5, then a takes on b5, your knight is attacked. You can trade the rooks, but after knight to a3, black has queen to a4, and black has a lot more space here. Black is completely fine. He's actually slightly better. So you want to temporarily sacrifice this pawn after knight to a3, but rook to b8 was played. Pragg doesn't want to take this pawn. We have a takes on b5, a takes on b5, and now we have a bishop to g5, temporarily pinning this knight. We have a bishop to d6. Black invites here white for an endgame. If he wants to take this, queen takes on f6, white will have slight advantage, but actually the game is practically equal if this trade happens here, with queens also going off the board. We have rook f to c1. We have knight to e5, nice move attacking the queen. Queen retreats to g2. We have knight e to d7 now for Pragg. Maneuvering of the pieces, knight to c2. Queen to b6 here played for Pragg. We have a b4. Now this pawn is protected for now. There is no longer advancement of this pawn, and now it's a baiting game. e5. Pragg again strengthens his center here, and now we have h4 for Vincent Keymer. Vincent wants to maybe later in the game create some sort of attack on the king side, but for now everything is solid here. Praggnanandha holds the game. We have rook to a8. Pragg invites a trade. Queen to f1. For now we have rook f to c8, and now we have rook takes, and rook to a1. Another another offer of a trade. We have queen to c6 for Pragg. Pragg wants to, of course, invite this trade, but under his terms. After this trade, his queen will control the a file. We have rook takes, queen takes, and queen to c1. So for now, Keymer doesn't want to challenge and invite black to go for this endgame, more specifically because this pawn is hanging. We have queen to b7, we have bishop to d1, slight rerouting of his pieces. Pragg also does the same, knight to e8, we have bishop to d2. For now this pawn is protected. Knight to b8, another maneuvering move with the idea to go to c6 and then threaten this pawn on b4. We have knight goes on e1 for now. Now this knight wants to find a better square as well. We have knight to c6 now, threatening to take this pawn. And for now, Vincent Keymer sacrifices this pawn after bishop b3. By the way, this is one of the best moves here. After bishop b3, there might be a way to save this pawn. Let's say instead of that, you play queen to b2, but then after knight to f6, knight to f3, queen d7, and queen a1, the position is again equal. And this is computer recommended light. Again, computer sees that this is what you should go for in order to to sacrifice this pawn in order to win this one. But of course, this didn't happen in our game. We had bishop b3, and this sacrifice happened. And by the way, after bishop takes on b4, white is doing better. Interestingly looking at that. Although Pragg has a pawn advantage, he is not doing better. We have knight to f3 immediately, trying to attack this pawn here. As you can see, both players are kind of low, but Pragg is 6, as you can see on the time, 6:57. Queen to e7 was the first mistake of the game. Pragg had in mind that he wanted to protect this pawn. After knight to f3, computer recommends actually going queen to c7, offering a trade. But of course, this didn't happen, and we had queen to e7, which was a mistake, and now we have a queen to c6, which is a missed move by according to computer calculation. Queen to c8 was a better here alternative by computer, at least calculation here. Actually, white would have a significant advantage, but queen to c6 was played for Vincent Keymer. White is still better, but not as good with queen to c8. We have h6. Pragg creates a Luft square for his king. We have queen to b5, of course. So now white finally retreats his lost pawn, and the situation is equal in terms of material, but in terms of position, white is slightly better. Bishop retreats to d6. It looks like it's going to be a draw game because of the opposite color bishops. Game continues with knight to f6. We have knight to h4, trying to go for knight to f5. We have queen to d7. We have a queen to a6 here for Vincent. King goes on h7 to avoid any checks and other threats. We have a queen to a2, now threatening to take this pawn here. King to g8 is the only way that is good for black to defend this pawn. Queen to a8, check. Queen e8, offering a trade, and this would be a great endgame for Pragg. This would be a drawn endgame. Queen to a6. Pragg was looking for a draw since his opponent, since his rival Gukesh of the tournament also had a bad game and a bad position against Erugaisi, so this was a chance for him to draw the game. But right now we have a bishop to f8 here played for Pragg, which is a first mistake. After queen to a6, computer recommends going queen to b8 here as the best move. But we had bishop to f8, and after queen to b6 here played for Vincent Keymer, we had a huge mistake of the position with a knight to h7 here by Pragg, although this was a, unreasonable mistake because Pragg had enough time here, probably lost in concentration. Now the main idea of Vincent Keymer here in the position was actually to go queen g6. Although this is a good move, this is not the best. After knight to h7, the best was knight to g6, and the idea is that after a bishop to a3, let's say for example, I will give you a random move. Now you play queen to c7, threatening immediately to take this one here, and let's say bishop to b4. Now you definitely lose one of your pawns, and you lose a pawn on e5, and this is now completely losing. But of course, after knight to h7, this was a huge mistake. Queen g7 was played for Vincent Keymer. Not the best move. He spent a lot of time there, but still white has the advantage. We have knight to g5 here, queen to f5, slow maneuvering, queen to b8. There is literally not many moves here for black. Bishop to c4. This king is safe. This bishop is protected. This pawn chain is also protected by this bishop, so giving this check would help Praggnanandha with nothing here. Bishop d6, trying to protect this pawn. We have a king to g2, and now king to f8, another mistake of the position here. Unfortunately, Pragg didn't see the follow-up here after, Vincent Keymer didn't see the follow-up. After king to f8, the best move here, I will show you first what Vincent Keymer played. Yes, knight to g6 is fine, white has the advantage, but after king to f8 here, knight to f3 was better. It looks silly, but it is. Let's say now you play something like queen to c7. After knight takes on g5, h takes on g5, you as white continue with queen to h7, and after bishop to a3, let's say queen to h8 check, king e7, and queen takes on g7, and this is a completely lost position. This pawn is hanging, this pawn is hanging, and you are losing the game in a very short time. So this is why what Vincent Keymer missed, but he played knight to g6. This is not losing, but just simply showing you that this previous move, knight to f3, had a lot more damage to do than this. King goes on g8, again continued with queen to d7 with the same idea of trying to create pressure on this pawn. As you can see, also both players are getting low on time. We have bishop to f8, we have knight to h4, we have bishop to d6 here. Knight goes on f5, now this bishop on d6 is attacked. We have bishop to f8, another retreating move. Knight goes on h4, a slight repetition to gain a little bit of time, but of course Vincent Keymer doesn't want to go for a draw, because now he has a better position and he wants to try and use that to maybe win a game. We have queen to f8 here for Pragg. We have now knight takes on g5, which is the best move here. Knight h takes on g5, and we have a bishop picking up on f7 with a check, which is the best move. Now I will show you what would happen. For example, in the game king h8 was played, but let's say what would happen if queen takes on f7 is played here for Pragg. After queen to d6, as you can see, computer evaluation, white has only pawn advantage, but computer gives almost 5 points of advantage here, because let's say now computer sample line g4 trying to some perpetual checks. We play calmly with queen to d5, offering a trade. After queen takes, e takes on d5, king f7, f3, g takes on f3, king f3, king f6, and after king to e4, now you simply have to go back. This pawn will fall. If you go king on g5, then king takes on e5, and this pawn will promote to a queen. So that is the reason why queen takes on f7 was not good and king h8 was played, which is also not good, but nothing really is easy right now. The game is still not over. The black still has some chances, and he wants to give it a try as much as he can, because as you can see, Vincent Keymer also thinks a lot, and you see 1.56 seconds per for his opponent here. Queen goes on e6 now. This queen is basically stuck here, protecting the checkmate threat. Bishop f6 now protects this pawn chain, and now we have bishop to c4. Slight mistake. Computer sees something else here as the best move. Queen f5 was slightly better, but bishop c4 is perfectly fine. King goes on h7. White is practically winning here. Now the only thing is how to finish it, because you have only 2 minutes on the clock. We have queen to f5 check. King goes on h8. We have queen g6 now. The main idea is to try and create an h6 break. Bishop goes on e7. We have bishop f7 now. Bishop b4 for black. Black is out of moves. We have queen to f5. Bishop d6. Again, black doesn't have many things to do here. King goes on h3 for Vincent Keymer. Bishop e7. King g4 to simply have another piece here attacking this pawn. Bishop f6. We have bishop e6 on the board. A queen goes on e7 now, trying to overprotect this pawn. As you can see, the times on the clock are really low. f4 mistakes can happen, and this is already one of the moves that slightly lowers the advantage of white. But of course, as you can see, anything can happen when you have this low. When you are this low on time, of course. G takes on f4. Queen to d6 now was a crucial mistake here for Pragg, but Vincent Keymer was short here on time and he didn't see the follow-up, which was f takes on e5. After bishop takes, you go queen to g6, and after queen to e7, you go bishop to f5. Now this king is also getting checkmated if you move your queen, because this was a checkmate threat. Now after h6 the game is done. You can try with bishop f6, but after that queen h7 check, king f7, bishop g6 check, king goes on e6, queen g8 check, king d6, and after h7 goodbye, this pawn will promote and there is nothing you can do here. So this was the way to victory for Vincent Keymer, but he had only 1 minute and 19 seconds. He had to move fast and he played bishop to c4. Again, nothing too spectacular happened, but still black is in life and he can continue playing. Queen to b8, bishop to d5, we have e takes on f4, and right now we have e5 on the board, which is actually a huge mistake here for Vincent Keymer. After e takes on f4, the best move was actually by computer evaluation queen e6 with again the same idea. So you should basically let this pawn go here and ignore it and go for again a checkmating threat. But it is what it is. Sorry about that, guys. We have e5 on the board. Now pressuring this bishop. As I mentioned, this is a mistake. You see from the evaluation bar. Bishop takes on e5, and now the position is slightly better for white. Actually, it's a drawn position here, so Praggnanandha probably relieved if he was aware of in that time. He has 3 pawns, his opponent has 2, but of course Praggnanandha's king is much more vulnerable than Vincent Keymer's. We have bishop to e4 threatening checkmate threat immediately. King must go on g8. We have queen to e6 check. King has to retreat, and now we have queen to g6, again checkmate threat. Now of course black has some checks, queen to c8, bishop to f5, and queen to g8, and it seems Pragg find a way to draw the game. We'll see some repetition. King to f3, bishop to f6, bishop to e4, and right now we have a bishop to e5, which was the crucial mistake of the game, because now with this move Pragg missed that h6 was a possibility, which is a great move. In this position, instead of bishop e5, computer recommends simply going somewhere else with your bishop, like bishop to h4, and after h6 now bishop e7. Black simply doesn't have anything, but this happened in the game and we had bishop e5. Now after h6 the situation is getting more complicated now. Now bishop b8 was played. By the way, I will show you what would happen if bishop f6 is played. Then how white continues is simply by taking this, and now he continues with queen e8 check. Because this is opposite colored bishops, you cannot stop this bishop with your dark squared, and you have a big diagonal here. And after queen to h5 check, if you go queen h7, this is a checkmate. And of course, if you go king to g7, then queen g6 check. And after, let's say, king to f8, you will end up this way. And now we will pick up this pawn. And that's it. By the way, we will not take it here. You have to give up your queen because this is bishop c6 checkmate. So truly wonderful now what happened on the board. After h6, bishop b8, we have queen to g5, queen to f8. Pragg is out of moves here. We have h takes on g7, and after queen takes on g7, queen h4 was the last move of the game, after which Praggnanandha decided to resign. Unfortunately, he had a draw. The position was really sharp. It was really incredibly hard to complete this game until the very end, but unfortunately in the end he lost. But in the end, actually, he was sharing the first place with his countryman Gukesh. No one actually challenged them for the first place, and both of them went to play in the playoff round, which was a 3 game of 3+1 game method, so it was a blitz game, and in the end Pragg managed to win with 2-1. I will actually, I believe, show these games also on this channel. Now we will quickly look why Praggnanandha resigned this game, because there is nothing you can do. Of course, if you block with your queen, this is a checkmate in one move. So what else is there? You can go with your king on g8, let's say, but then white continues with bishop d5. Now, in case you go, of course, king to f8, then queen d8 is a checkmate. Simply weak diagonals, you cannot cover them. And after that, let's say, let's see now, after queen to h4, king to f8, you cannot go. After queen to h8, king g8. Now, let's say, queen to f7. Here, of course, you can sacrifice your queen, but this is a game over. Even now you can take your bishop, but you don't want to allow that. You can actually go queen d8 check, and after king g7 you first take bishop, and after king takes you simply take this bishop, and there is enough time for Vincent Keymer to give a checkmate with his queen. Truly wonderful, wonderful game, and it was a very intense tournament until the very end, especially with two losses of the two players who competed for the first place, and in the end they both ended playing for a final so to speak Armageddon round with 3+1, and that's how this tournament finished, and that's the all end of this video, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, suggestions, do let me know in the comments below. I always enjoy reading them, and for everything else, I'm always here. I wish you a pleasant day. Bye bye.